how would you define success in the realm of curiosity? So when you're being curious, how do you put the star on yourself that says you've been successful in an exploration?
I say two things off the top of my head is I'm going to go back to what I said before, not taking things personally. So removing yourself from it, whether it's previous knowledge you have on the topic or just like your own identity and things like that. And then having an open mind when you are curious and allowing, like saying maybe what I thought before or how I identified before could totally be disrupted by this. And also two, I would say courage. When you have the courage to ask the more difficult conversations, because I often find when I'm curious about something, I can ask all the surface conversations and it gets to those questions I have. And I'm like, oh God, now I'm going to start asking this person like their thoughts on death and like maybe just the more touchy things that I'm even a bit nervous to ask. So those would be like how I would define success within curiosity.
How do you adopt? So on the first one, how do you adopt the idea of questioning your preconceived belief? I've found that that's to be especially hard when discussing with people, because I think a lot of the time people, so there are these axioms of belief, and essentially an axiom is I would describe it visually as the pillar that holds up the foundation, or it's the foundation that you've actually built yourself on. So you could say that one of the axioms of science is the theory of evolution. And the majority of science is based that this theory actually exists and it works. And so if we end up pulling that, then a lot of scientific thought actually collapses underneath the weight of the inability to hold itself up under the now vanished foundation. And so how have you cultivated a perspective where you're actually able to be curious and ask questions that you're essentially preparing yourself to, over time, erode the things that you once believed? And so the point that I'm making with the axioms is that a lot of the times I think people put the axiom that they are correct in things above the axiom that they potentially could be wrong about things. So maybe you could say that one axiom would be the belief in the scientific method, that you put all the hypotheses out there and you weigh all of the variables, and as time goes on, you're able to eliminate the potential hypotheses that aren't confirmed by all of the different inputs that you put into it. And then this axiom of being correct in something is, I think, what people fall into when they start to ascribe to some type of ideology where they believe something exists, and even if they are confronted by evidence of the contrary, they're still able to hold on to that thing. And I think that's the difference between those two.
Mm-hmm. There's like, I feel like there's like almost two parts to it. Is that, so if we're going to look at it, I'm trying to think of which would be better to start it.
Okay, so let's go on the axiom of, why don't you think that you're right about everything, and approach every single question that you do approach with that preconceived notion of blindfold correctness?
I think, and as cliche as it is, but I think cliches are cliches for a reason. Like the more you know, the more, what is the saying? Like the more you know, the more you like know that you don't know anything. Or what is it? Why can't I think of it?
Right. It's the Socratic paradox.
Is that what it is?
All that I know is that I do not know.
Exactly.
Right. The more that you know about something, the more that you understand how little you know about everything.
Literally, and that's how I feel about life. Like, but and so I think just acknowledging that is so powerful. And like even me sitting here and like you talking about using words that go over my head and things like that, I'm just gonna acknowledge, I'm gonna put my ego aside and just try not to get embarrassed and just be like, dude, I need you to reword that. Can you unbox it for me? And I think that's huge. Just really like not taking things personally and just being honest and just acknowledging that, like, yeah, I don't know everything. If that kind of answers that part of it, for sure.
So now how do you approach it from the, I would say, scientific perspective, where using
threatening your foundation?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a scary thing. I will acknowledge that. For me, I can only speak from my perspective, but for me, what I found was journaling was huge for me, because I completely agree with you when you're saying, when we're kind of like trying to figure out these ideas, it's hard to do that in a group sometimes. I need to know my thoughts before I express them to a group. sometimes.
Mhm.
um and so really just taking the action of journaling and writing things out. And something else I found along that journey that I'm currently on as well, of just like allowing yourself to feel and to mourn those parts of yourself that are maybe dying or getting crushed or being stripped out from underneath you, because it can be like a physical experience that you have of mourning these past selves and past ideas that you used to identify with. And I do want to like regurgitate that just having safe spaces where, and having the experience of being met with unconditional love has really helped me internally meet myself with unconditional love, um, as well. So if you can have those safe spaces externally, I didn't have it for a long time. So if you don't at the moment, that is totally fine. You will find your tribe at some point. But just build that relationship with yourself at the time.